There are actually 3 recommended readings for today, and I sort of jumped over the one that was printed in your bulletin because it's actually the Epiphany reading. So Christmas is kind of an interesting time as we get to Epiphany because we sort of swap readings. Now, last week we did the Festival of 9 Lessons and Carols, and in that service we talked about a very tragic part of the Christmas story, the slaughter of the holy innocents by King Herod. And the more I thought about that this week, and especially in light of what's happening in our world, I thought it better to talk about the aftermath of that, what happened. Joseph was warned in a dream to take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt. And Herod sent his troops in to kill all the children in Bethlehem under the age of 2. Because this is pretty on brand for Herod. He was called Herod the Great, not because he was a great guy. No. He was called Herod the Great because he built great building projects. The temple in Jerusalem was undergoing a major renovation thanks to Herod the Great. But he also built other places and shrines to other gods, and he did some interesting things, shall we say. Now, Herod was not Jewish. He was not an Israelite. It surprises people. Wait a minute, he's king of Judea. He was an Idumean. He was the son of Antipater, and he was placed on his throne by Rome. Idumea is the ancient land of Edom. Edom. Now, if you have been doing the Path Bible study with us and you think all the way back to Genesis, Edom was founded by one of the sons of Isaac, Esau. Oh. Esau was the father of the Edomites. And then we have Jacob, who becomes the progenitor of the Israelites. So now we have taken the older brother who sold his birthright. We have taken one of his tribe and put him in charge. That didn't sit well with the Israelites. Herod was an outsider and a convert to Judaism. He was ruthless. And the more I thought about him, I thought about the various places where he shows up. Now, there are a lot of Herods in the Bible, just an FYI. It's a recycled name. Herod the Great had at least 6 sons, 3 of whom he killed because they were a threat to his power. The other 3 survived. Herod Archelaus, we hear about him in the reading today. Apparently, he was just as scary as his dad because Joseph wanted no part of sticking around where he was. We have Herod Antipater. This is the Herod that Jesus interacts with more. All right. So we have a number of Herods. We have Philip the Tetrarch, who was the 3rd son who survived, and then Salome, a daughter. So when Herod the Great died, the kingdom was kind of divvied up amongst these 4 children. But Herod functioned. I kind of thought about how he interacted with the world. What was his worldview? How did he interact relationally? And what we get from Herod is that he is largely a transactional person. He interacts with people based on what they can do for him. All right. So if you're a slave, you can serve him. And he's thinking in that direction. He's thinking about how you're going to uphold his power, how you are going to give him status and face. Everything is transactional with this guy. Right. And, that's how people relate today. There are people who are largely transactional thinkers. And it's not an either or, right? So transactional thinking is often where people, you can see the gears turning, that they're trying to get something out of someone, right? Anybody experienced that before? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that friend who only calls you when they want something, pretty obvious. They're kind of a transactional thinker. They operate in that realm quite a bit. Sometimes it's a little less obvious. And by the way, all of us operate transactionally at times. My car broke down. I need a new car. Hey, my brother-in-law works at such and such a car dealership. Great, you're going to go see the brother-in-law. That's a transactional thing. You're not going to have a long-term relationship with that brother-in-law, but you need a new car, right? So we all operate at that level. But if that's all you operate in, you begin to see people as resources to be used, not human beings to be cherished in the image of God. Right? Transactional relationship is if that's all you do, you miss out on seeing the bigger picture. It also leaves you in the tyranny of right here, right now. And that's how Herod operates, right? He sees a potential threat, he kills a potential threat. He does it to his kids, he does it to the children in Bethlehem trying to get at Jesus. He's just going to be stuck with how frightened he really is. All the power in the world does not take away his existential dread that someone's going to off him, right? So he operates transactionally. Now, the alternative to transactional, and I kind of see it on a spectrum, right, is transcendental thinking. Now, some of us in the room are old enough to remember transcendental meditation, right? We think of that word transcendental, we immediately think of people who are meditating. But transcendental means to transcend the self, to transcend outside of one's own personal interests, to be able to think beyond, to see a bigger picture. This is how Jesus operated, right? He didn't, when a leper needed healing, he didn't think, what can this guy do for me? Right? He didn't think that way. When the centurion needed his slave healed, he didn't think, I wonder what I can get out of this guy. No, he didn't. And he also didn't think, this is my enemy. I can't do anything with this person. He didn't cut them off. No, he was open to everybody. He thought beyond himself. He thought to the bigger picture, to connect people and to connect his humanity with our humanity, as is said in the opening collect today. Jesus thought transcendentally. But at this point in the narrative of Matthew, Jesus is toddler in the house. All right. Perfectly on cue. Thank you. Yes, toddlers aren't really thinking transcendentally. That's not the level of thinking they're working on. And Jesus was a toddler. He was a little guy. But there are transcendental thinkers in the story. It's the Magi. The Magi are thinking beyond self. They tell Herod when they come to him to congratulate him on the new king, and Herod's counting up and saying, wait, I don't have any new kids in the house. They said, well, we've observed the star at its rising, and we've come to pay homage. I mean, these are people who came from a completely foreign country. They're risk takers because they're thinking beyond their immediate situation. They see the star, they're interpreting the signs. They go out on a great adventure to find the new king. And they listen to their dreams. Matthew's gospel is full of dreams. They were warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, who said, I want to pay homage too. Let me know where the kid is. And they are warned in a dream, and they pay attention to dreams. And they leave for their own country by another road. They're not going to play Herod's transactional game. They're thinking bigger. Now, this doesn't mean that the tragedy in Bethlehem will be avoided. Sadly, we see that all too much in our own world. Violence still happens in the midst of the good news of the birth of Jesus. But we see this contrast in thinking, transactional versus the transcendental. And as I said, I think they run on a spectrum. Our culture right now is really caught in transactional thinking. What are you going to do for me? Because it becomes all about me. And we see the selfishness playing out on the world stage. What's in it for me? But as Christians, we're called to emulate Jesus and indeed the Magi, who saw beyond self, who connect with others relationally, not based on what that other person's going to do for you, but for proclaiming the kingdom of God.